AI happens pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, it might just pass you by.
Hello, and welcome to The Reasoning Show. I'm your host, Brian Gracely, and today I have reason to wonder if the AI data centers of the future will look like the clouds of the past, or possibly something completely new. And to help us dig into that, we'll be joined today by Erwan Menard, Senior Vice President at the NeoCloud, Crusoe. We'll get started with that discussion right after the break. Today's show is brought to you by VENTION. Is AI truly improving how your software gets built, or just adding complexity? At VENTION, AI isn't an add-on. It's embedded into their software development lifecycle from architecture and coding through testing and release. Their engineers use it to cut friction, speed up progress, and raise quality at every stage. That's what they call the peace of mind promise. You focus on growing the product and winning your market while they handle the tech. Get software developers who build with you, not just for you, at VentionTeams.com. Welcome back to the show. Erwan Menard, Senior Vice President of Product Management at Crusoe. Welcome to the show. Great to have you on. We are going to dive into all things NeoCloud, Crusoe, a ton of stuff today. Really excited about it. But before we dive into that, give us a little bit about your background. Tell us what you've been doing for a while, but more importantly, what are you focused on now at Crusoe?
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Aaron. Thanks for having me. Erwan, I'm basically an entrepreneur in telecom and then IT who turned product lead in AI. I experienced the GenAI boom at Google. I actually joined the AI product lines of Google Cloud prior to GenAI, and then I was part of leading the development of the Vertex AI platform for data scientists, developers, and then build full stack agentic products such as Gemini Enterprise. And so today at Crusoe, so a NeoCloud, building a purpose-built AI cloud almost from scratch, which is a fascinating journey.
So, Erwan, let me ask you this real quick. I know we've got a bunch of good topics here, but I want to ask maybe a personal question. Do you like the term NeoCloud? I've heard very mixed things about the term. Let's talk about the term before we even go in any further.
Yeah, that's a good point. First of all, I think we need to look at category labels for what they're useful for, which is to establish a common context. So I value the fact that the industry is recognizing that there is a need for a new type of cloud. Now, the fact that I like or not the letters composing the word NeoCloud is irrelevant. What matters is that you got two amazing forces coming together that, frankly, I've never seen in 25 plus years in this industry, including participating in my early years to the boom of mobile communication. So, I saw mobile phones changing the way we communicate. I thought this would be the biggest innovation wave I would ever experience, and I was wrong. So what's happening today is that you get this massive demand for AI tooling for people to do their jobs. I mean, I see that, for example, with Cursor is one of our customers, and the demand for their code assistant is amazing. And at the same time, you have the need to reinvent the entire stack. And I really mean the entire stack. So I'm a software guy, so I'm happy to talk about those layers. But when I joined Crusoe, what fascinated me is that I never really understood that if I take an hyperscaler data center 5 years ago, a single rack is like 15 kilowatt of energy payload. A GB200 rack, like we're shipping every day to customers nowadays, is 115 kilowatt per rack. So the physics of the whole thing, including the building, have to be reinvented. Everybody, including hyperscalers, have to reinvent everything. So strong demand, strong technology disruption, these two things coming together, I honestly want to think there is a need for a new category. And I'm very happy to be pioneering here.
Yeah, no, it's we've debated names for a long time on the show. I think, like you said, it's naming is one thing. Making sure you're at the intersection of like big waves, big trends is far, far more important. Obviously, there's been a lot of coverage about AI data center build out for the last couple of years. I think you just threw out a number. I think we're hearing numbers that are kind of blowing people away in terms of how much is needed, how big they're going to be, how much different they are. Tell us about Crusoe from a high level perspective. What's your approach to providing NeoCloud service? Like you said, you're reinventing everything from the ground up. Give us the big picture of how you guys are thinking about this challenge and how you're going about solving it.
Right. I think the short version of it is we supply everything from electrons to tokens. And we can double click on that if you think that's interesting to the audience. But today, if you want to build a sustainable cost structure allowing you to serve that AI demand, you need to connect the dots between energy sourcing, electrons, data center development, and cloud services, which is not only GPUs, but all the software stack on top. We focus on tying those three dots in order to build a cloud that is dedicated to AI and will be eventually the place where it's the easiest and most efficient to build and run your AI agent.
That makes sense. And Erwan, let me ask you this. Let me kind of take it one step further. What are some of the biggest challenges facing Crusoe today? I mean, both today and I guess the immediate future, right? Is it the technology itself, like the GB200 or, next generations? Is it energy and power rights? Is it, financing this constant expansion and growth? As somebody who comes from a data center and co-location background, like my head just hurts sometimes when it comes to like that intersection of like, hey, you want the facility somewhere good, but then you have to have power, in that location. And there's so many things that has to come together. Like that has to be something that keeps you up at night.
Yeah, no, it does. First of all, I think what keeps us up at night is demand.
Yeah.
I think that's something we need to continue talking about in podcasts like this one. I think a lot of people are rightfully asking questions about, the reality of this whole thing. The demand is astronomical. Like as a NeoCloud, we're not in a position to serve all the demand coming our way. Back to your question. So, this, I think you will appreciate that with your background in data centers, right? With energy, data center development, cloud services, those three dots you need to connect have very different paces, right? Energy deals are built over years. It takes years to build a pipeline of energy. Data center development used to be years. I think companies like Crusoe are proving you can do it in quarters. So we've built a 1.2 gigawatt campus in Abilene, Texas, as part of the Stargate project. And we were able to start getting into production within 11 months, which is supposedly a new world record until somebody else breaks it. But you get the point. Timelines are shrinking into quarters. And then all of us have built software over the years. The software is a matter of weeks, right? You think in sprints. And so what I find fascinating is to try to synchronize three work streams like this that fundamentally operate at different pace with different cultures. And that's what I think we're figuring out. Our energy pipeline is 45 gigawatt right now. Our data center development is in a few gigawatt currently being built. And then, of course, on the software side, we're iterating very quickly to ship new features as customers ask us to help them simplify, automate the operation of this infrastructure. For example, we acquired a company specializing on optimizing some aspects of inference. We were able within 3 months to go from stealth startup acquisition into a service that we ship with an SLA to customers. And so it's really what keeps me up at night is to have those three dimensions moving together in the right direction without one slowing the other two, despite the fact that they fundamentally operate at different paces.
Yeah. I want to follow up on that question. Aaron sort of asked it open-ended, like, what keeps you up at night? Obviously, you've got both, existing customers, you mentioned, Cursor, but you've got lots of other customers, and then you've got new prospective customers. When you're in a situation, like you said, where you're kind of, building everything from scratch because, the challenges are things that people haven't really dealt with, like how, and transparent's probably not the right word, but what I'm kind of getting at is, your customers are kind of recognizing that they're going along for the ride in this, right? They're having to be like, look, I recognize it's new. I'm asking you to do things. How much do you feel like you have to communicate with them as far as like, these are the challenges that we have. We're solving them as best we can. These are our timelines for next stuff, like so that they can potentially adjust accordingly, or are you really just talking to them about like, talk to me about capacity or talk to me about, velocity because I will deal with your problem. Like I'm curious, really mostly at this early stage and where we are with AI, how are those conversations maybe different than maybe what you used to have with Google 2 or 3 years ago, where things were maybe more stable and you were just talking about a capability. So that's what I'm kind of curious about, again, what's the customer conversation happening at this early stage of things?
The short version of it is that it's very, very transparent, and we're actually comparing notes with each other. Take one of the GPU SKUs I just talked about, GB200. You can look for yourself on hyperscalers. They're typically not offered with an SLA yet, although they started coming live and being announced with great trumpeting many months ago. So we're all learning. If there is no SLA behind that hardware, it's probably because it's not that easy. And so people expect that you share knowledge, and frankly, you learn from them. We're very lucky to work with very sophisticated AI natives, companies who were born to do this.
Right.
So the reason they want to work with us is possibly that we're more cost competitive, but fundamentally, it's because we do this and this only all day long, just like them. And so if we meet there and share knowledge, we just help each other. And that knowledge eventually will be distilled into managed services that less sophisticated user will be using later on. That's kind of the Formula One innovation trickling down to your everyday car phenomena. I think it's going to happen big time, because the other day I'm with one of those very demanding customers, and we're very happy to say we're done. We've upgraded the whole fleet to the latest firmware. As we discussed, this will improve the fan behavior when we get a spike of inference, and temperature does this and that. And the customer's like, yeah, that's great. Now we need to think about the next one, because NVIDIA's bringing another one on Monday. How quickly can we deploy it? And so I think this type of super advanced, pushing the limit conversation is what people expect from a NeoCloud. And frankly, that's where we also build very unique knowledge.
Erwan, let me ask you this, because Crusoe really kind of started as more of originally a Bitcoin focused company, right? And has evolved. And so, obviously you had the GPUs and you had the power and some of these other things, in common. But what kind of architectural changes did both you have to make, and what did your customers expect from this kind of
architecturally is completely, it's a really good question, because before joining Crusoe, I'd never done Bitcoin mining myself. So I kind of looked into that and tried to figure out what can we extract that is valuable in this AI era. For what it's worth, we divested the Bitcoin business in May 2025. We're 100% AI today. I think that experience with a workload that's very different. It's okay with intermittent access to the internet or energy. Like Bitcoin mining is very tolerant. When you run a training job or an inference service, downtime is not an option. So the two workloads are very different. However, I see two areas where customers benefit from that Bitcoin experience. One, to your point, GPU hardware reliability management. I'm just trying to put nice words around this. This is true knowledge. Like, you need to know how to prepare yourself for a high failure rate that will eventually shrink down. But if you want to be early in market with a given SKU, you need to be prepared for a very, very bumpy road. The second piece is modular data centers. So actually, Crusoe had a fantastic story of building Bitcoin dedicated data centers in a container that they would deploy on oil fields using, the flaring gas that you use. And I'm not an oil and gas specialist, but simply said, you push gas into the oil reserve, and the gas helps surfacing the oil, which you can then extract and blah, blah, blah. And so that gas, when it makes its way back to the surface, gets burnt. These are the flames you see in movies where you see oil fields. And so that flaring gas is actually wasted. And so they came up with a modular data center design that allows to take that flaring gas, burn it, and mine Bitcoins with it, with GPUs in a box on the oil field. Very difficult to do, because those environments are not forgiving at all in terms of weather and environmental conditions. You cannot get there so easily. So you need to get reliability in your box. I mean, if you need somebody to sit by its side, it kind of defeats the purpose. So all of that knowledge today is available in a very unique AI-focused data center in a box, a modular data center that we call Spark, and that we're manufacturing in volume this year after a successful experiment last year. And so that modular AI data center, which is probably the densest in the industry, like megawatt per square foot, will allow us to build dedicated regions for customers who want to have exclusive use of a given part of the cloud. Inference at the edge, if you want to kind of grab another advantage latency-wise, inferencing closer to usage. And of course, we'll be able to build presence for Crusoe Cloud ahead of the data center building being up and running. So we can start establishing service in a given location just by dropping that box. To me, that's the number one manifestation of that experience. Like I think we're understanding modular data center for AI. Not everything is a gigawatt data center. We're probably understanding that ahead of the curve because we learned through Bitcoin.
No, that's, and I think any instance where you're finding learning curves, especially as fast as this stuff is moving, is probably incredibly important, even if it's a little bit adjacent to maybe what it eventually turns into. But yeah, that 3 months learning curve, 6 month learning curve probably pays exponential value down the road. I'm curious, as you talk to companies or as companies evaluate you, do you find that you're spending more of your time focused on, more of the services you provide focused on model training and customization, or is more of it on inference? Or, do people need to sort of understand the differences between those two? Or I guess I'm trying to get a sense of, as your customers come to you, what's the conversation? Is it around capabilities for training and customization? Is it around inference? Do they look for the whole thing? Do they want to know where you're going in both, kind of both those areas? Or is it a very different, are those just details of the conversation?
So as far on the spectrum of training and inference, it's the whole spectrum now.
Yeah.
And frankly, the way you optimize the performance and the cost of the infrastructure underneath is different for both of them. Your dependency on storage is higher with training than inference. Mm-hmm. On inference, you'll pay a lot of attention to latency. But if you have an issue, you can switch to another infra to serve because you're doing individual transactions. While on training, the job has to reach at least a checkpoint of you, or you've wasted a lot of time and cost. So the requirements are different, but the conversation spans the entire life cycle. The other dimension that I find really interesting and frankly a little bit counterintuitive at first is the conversation around the level of abstraction. We work predominantly with very sophisticated AI natives, and I came to this 6 months ago thinking, these are people who probably will want to disaggregate the stack the best they can and turn every single knob, even at the GPU level. And I was wrong. They want to do that for a fraction of their workloads where it's worth their own engineering investment. But they also want managed services that are going to abstract some of the complexity for some other workloads. Like the same customer is going to tell you, I want GB300 tuned this way to try to push my training to this limit. But for additional incremental training on that pre-existing model, can you give me managed Kubernetes and save me time and just give me clusters that are self-healing in case of problems? Similarly, in inference, we got customers who are like, we've crafted our inference engine. We're very proud of how it inferences our specific model. So for this model in our panel of models, we'll do it ourselves. Just give us a GPU cluster. And for that other model that serves that other part of my user base, I'm going to give you the model weight, and you give me a managed API with an SLA on time to first token and queries per second, so concurrent usage, and you commit yourself as a cloud provider. I don't even want to know on which GPU it's running. You need to deliver that service performance. And so the same AI natives are having different level of abstraction conversation depending on the task they have to accomplish. And I think it's a function of the fact that talent is scarce, and people try to invest their engineering cycles where they get the best payback, and when they can rely on our engineering and still save, on the major cost item of their business. I mean, inference is the biggest cost in your AI agent. Well, they'll take it and get an SLA. So we're trying to think of the product offering along those two dimensions: what workload, training and inference, what level of abstraction and performance guarantees you would expect.
And it makes sense, and it's interesting just to see how quickly that spread of capabilities is coming to you, right? Like I want some do it myself, I want some you to manage, and people are now learning fast enough to figure out, okay, this dial impacts both technology performance but also economics, and they're having to think about both those at the same time. So fascinating.
Yeah,
fascinating.
Exactly.
Erwan, let me ask you this, because we talked a little bit about like, okay, what made a NeoCloud and what's kind of changed over the last couple of years. And and how we kind of came into this category. But I'll ask you to kind of, take out your crystal ball for a second. And where do you think like the most change is going to happen in the next couple of years? Is it Vera Rubin and just the always increasing power density costs? Is it, other chips are going to come into the market? Or is it something we honestly haven't even really thought of yet? What's your thoughts on where the NeoCloud market goes and what you're expecting?
So I think you're right talking about accelerators. I mean, we need to continue easing GPU access. By the way, it did ease a lot the last few months, but I think there is room for more. We're very happy to serve both NVIDIA and AMD chips. We're working with other accelerator providers. Obviously, I think we'll start talking very seriously about inference dedicated accelerators in production in volume. I think this is the year where that pivot's going to happen. So more innovation there. You mentioned VR. We're super excited about it, not only because of performance, but also to think about operating a cloud. There's a bunch of promises for a simpler operation that I think will benefit in terms of time to market and cost structure. But eventually, I think, I wonder sometimes if in a couple of years, Crusoe today sells GPU clusters, right? GPU per hour type reservation or spot instances, and then we sell tokens if you use our inference service. I wonder if in 2 years from now, we're not selling megawatts and tokens. I think this whole compression of the equation of energy, data center development, cloud services, this whole thing is becoming so intertwined that I think eventually energy is the scarce resource that will drive a lot of what's happening in this industry. And I'm excited about that because we have genes there, and I want to think we understand it. But I'm excited also as a software engineer, to get myself connected to some hard realities. We're looking at SMR, and obviously following how the regulation will evolve. The other day, I was at a very famous VC in the Valley here, just talking about scouting their portfolio. And they just invested in a company who's thinking about simplifying thermal energy availability. And that's super intriguing. And if you think as a software person that your ability to build cool products and help customers will predominantly depend on that, and that this technology world evolves on a yearly or multi-year pace, I think that's it's very exciting. So to me, connecting the dots between energy, data center development, cloud services, that's really what we need to incorporate deep in our fabric as software innovators.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. We've talked about it a bunch. I think, really understanding not just the data center, but the energy demands, the technology that's reshaping that is super, super important. I think we may have to pick your brain about this many, many times in the future. I want to ask you one last question because I know your time's valuable. We've seen discussions around sovereign AI, private AI, things in which people have greater control over that. How much are you seeing that become a realistic, bigger topic, either amongst your customers or something you're following because of geopolitics? Is that something that you guys are thinking about? I mean, obviously your modular capabilities seem like they'd be really well suited to this. Are you seeing that as a reality as opposed to sort of the level of discussion that's happening out there?
I mean, I appreciate you're right. I appreciate the fact that it's talked about a lot now. But, I was lucky enough to be in AI, before GenAI. I can tell you that within 6 months of GenAI starting to kick in and get adoption and the topic of data residency, where is the model processed? Can I get a dedicated region? These topics were front and center very early. So I'm taking us back mid-20.
Okay.
So I don't think the topic is that new. It's talked more about maybe as a function of the geopolitical environment, but the topic was there already. And I think we need to incorporate that requirement if we want to be a global player. So you're right. Our main contribution today is this modular data center. I can give you a dedicated region. I can make commitment on your prompts, answers of the model being stored in that location, the model being processed there, you and you only using that particular estate, although you manage it through a global control plane because you may have multiple deployments within Crusoe Cloud. I'm going to give you that data residency and model processing residency and dedication. Where I'm as a product person, where I keep my sensors really open, and it's a humbling world, right? Requirements change all the time. But I'm trying to listen to signals about air gap deployments. Are we going to see more of that? We've all followed how every hyperscaler has put together a solution for that. It's been a tricky market.
Yep.
I don't know if we're going to see that with AI, and I'm just humbly listening and asking questions, and we'll see how it goes. But where our mind is already set is data residency and commitment on dedicated regions. We can do it. We can do it in 26, and I hope our assumptions are right, and we meet strong demand because we're manufacturing ourselves. I forgot to tell you that. We also manufacture.
No, geez.
And so that modular data center is actually a factory we've built in the United States. So it's a big bet for the company, and I feel really good about it.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. Erwan, I think we're gonna wrap up there. We could go on for a long time. I'm hoping we get a chance to bring you back again. Aaron, as I was thinking about this, we're lucky to have Erwan as sort of our first guest on our relaunching of the Reasoning Show. I feel like he may be the perfect president of the NeoCloud that we need to,
There you go.
Erwan, you don't know the joke. The first person we had on,
I'm scared.
No. It's a good compliment. The first person we had on the Cloudcast 15 years ago, we sort of dubbed him the president of the private cloud because he had this deep knowledge of the space. So he became an honored space in there. And
oh my God.
You being our first guest, we are very humbled for to sort of be able to tap into your knowledge and hopefully given your position in the marketplace and the stuff you guys are expanding on, hopefully we get a chance to have you back on frequently and kind of keep us up to date on what's going on in this NeoCloud space that you guys are helping to create. So thank you for the time today. Aaron, any last thoughts?
No, I think that's fantastic. Yeah, and Erwan, congrats on the honorary title that we've bestowed upon you on the show. That's probably the only thing. Fantastic conversation today, and thank you very much for your insight. And yes, definitely look forward to talking to you more in the future.
Yeah. So, folks, with that, we're going to wrap it up. We want to thank Erwan for his time, and thank you all for listening to kind of the rebranding, the relaunch of the show, and we're excited to see where it goes. We hope these kind of conversations are going to be useful for you. So with that, we'll wrap it up, and we will talk to you next week.
Check us out online at reasoning.show for all things reasoning. And leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to the show.